everyone. Been a minute. It's been 2 weeks exactly. I just got back from my spooky tour that I've been looking for. Not Charleston, both St. Augustine and Savannah, numerous times before. But I'd never been to Charleston. And every time you go to like a place that you don't reside, or even like in the place that you do reside, I feel like there's always something new, right? There's always something new to discover. There's always something you missed, the last few times that you went, and that is absolutely the case with St. Augustine and Savannah. So for those of you who were not aware of the vacation, let me just make sure that this is pretty sure. Okay, that's fine. So for those of you who weren't aware of what this vacation was, it was a spooky ghost tour. We were spooky road trip. So we would start in St. Augustine, which is the oldest city in the United States. It was founded in 1565 by Ponce de Leon, I believe, and was under Spanish control for a very long time. And then Savannah is, I think, the seventh oldest. It's not like the top. I think the oldest city, the oldest city is St. Augustine. I think the second oldest city is in Pennsylvania or maybe Massachusetts. I don't know, but Savannah's like further down on the list. It was founded in 1733, and it's got a super colorful history. It's got a huge Irish kind of influence and population, and that's because Irish, basically convicts, were sent to Savannah to basically work as indentured servants. It's got Native American history. It's got Black history. It's got Haitian history. It's all kinds of really French history. All kinds of really cool stuff. Kind of pirates in Savannah, which I think, like, to me, that makes Savannah probably the most interesting city on this tour. St. Augustine is great. It's very touristy. It's the oldest city in the United States. And they've beautifully preserved that particular city, like the city center. But it's mostly tourists, that you go there and it's mostly just tourists. And it's basically one-sided. There's not as big of an amalgamation of different cultures and stories and histories in St. Augustine as I feel there are in Savannah. Or at least if there are, I'm not aware of it. St. Augustine essentially, served as a port city, served as a defense, like a point of defense. It's got that big fort there. And it changed hands several times. It changed hands to the French, not the French, but the Spanish, to the French, to the British, to the US, back to the Spanish. All kinds of people didn't want it. This is my understanding of reading Florida histories. People didn't want Florida. It was full of mosquitoes, and it was really hot, and it was really humid, and it was full of very, very, very angry Native Americans who didn't want anybody there. So nobody really wanted Florida. I feel that's probably part of why it switched hands so many times to finally, ultimately, become part of the States. Hey, Daniel. Hey, David. How are you? So when we got to St. Augustine, we we made reservations at the Casa Monica Hotel. If you don't know what that hotel looks like, Google it. It is gorgeous. It was built in the late 1800s. The land was purchased by Henry Flagler, and I think I went over this like the last time we spoke. But if you guys aren't from Florida, if you aren't local, Google Henry Flagler. He's a big name here in Florida. He's got his own college, which happens to also be in St. Augustine, and there's lots of like roads and boulevards named after him. So Henry Flagler owned the land that the Casa Monica was eventually built upon, and it was built in the old Moorish style. So it's like an old Spanish-looking hotel. It's gorgeous. It's so pretty. And at one point, it was attached to the Lightner Museum, which is right across the street, which also started out as a hotel. I believe the Lightner Museum was purchased and constructed by Flagler. I think. I could be totally wrong. But I think in the 1930s or something, they destroyed the bridge and they made the the hotel that would become the Lightner Museum into the Lightner Museum, and the Casa Monica remained a hotel. It went under amazing renovations in the late 1990s. And actually, the King and Queen of Spain flew over to Florida for the purpose of essentially christening the hotel. And there's a picture of them like in the hotel. It's really, really, really cool. Um, yes, Dawson. And forgive me, I am allergic to Mondays. This happens every single Sunday. That every Sunday, or every day that is the day before we start the week again. I am allergic to work. That is the only conclusion that I can reach. I have ruled out all the other things, and the only thing I can think of is this is some kind of histamine reaction to going back to work. So I think I'm literally allergic to work. That's neither here nor there. We're not going to talk about work right now. This is still weekend space. So my dad actually came along to St. Augustine with my mom and I, because this was going to be a mother-daughter trip. But he came along, and I'm so glad he did. I really think that he enjoyed it. And we basically just walked around the entire 2 days that we were there. And actually, that's what we did for Savannah and for Charleston. We just walked around. And my mom is a big jewelry person. She loves jewelry. That's her thing. Some people it's cars, some people it's shoes, some people it's clothes, some people it's tattoos. With my mother, it's always been jewelry. In fact, I remember she loves me and she thinks my tattoos are very pretty, but she doesn't. That's not her thing. And she's oftentimes said, "Why don't you just get jewelry? It is forever." And it's beautiful just like the tattoos, and if you get tired of it you can get rid of it. I'm like, that's great and all, and I can do both. I like my tattoos, but I also like jewelry. So anyway, so she has to stop at every single jewelry store, not to like buy anything, but basically to window shop. She calls it looking at the sparklies. I love my mother. And she's made herself very knowledgeable about jewelry. She knows, if you could ask her any question about diamonds and she just, oh yeah, no, yeah. She just retreats to her jewelry mind palace and just pulls out, yeah, I have the answer to this. I got the answer to this too. So there was a jewelry shop store at the bottom of the Santa Monica Hotel. You know how like some hotels, there's like the rooms are up top, but then like at the bottom of a hotel, there are a bunch of like little shops. That's what this hotel was. There was like a jewelry store. There were several art galleries. There was like a Starbucks or something. And this jewelry store, actually, let me see. I'm trying to remember the name of the store. I'm a terrible person. But it's important because they actually design their own jewelry. Yeah, I don't know. I forgot. It started with an R. But we walk in and she's oohing and ahhing over everything, and I'm kind of like looking around and everything, and I find this beautiful pendant. And I was not necessarily in the market for a new necklace. But I saw this and I was like immediately fell in love. I was like, oh my God, it's so pretty. And I had been wanting to get more like yellow gold stuff because I don't have a lot of yellow gold stuff, and because shopping is cathartic, I guess. But like I looked at the price and I was like, ooh, yeah, it wasn't. Maybe if it were, I don't know, a little less expensive, I would have been like, fuck it, it's vacation, I'll get it anyway. But it wasn't. I was like, I'm not gonna just impulsively spend money on a piece of jewelry. Now, mom found a pendant that she loved, and my dad was like, just get it, just get it. You haven't, you deserve it. She had recently gone through some stuff that was not great. And she was a champ. So ultimately my dad got her the pendant because he's a wonderful, perfect gentleman. And he noticed, because he's very perceptive, that I was oohing and ahhing over a particular pendant. And as they're checking out with my mom's necklace, my dad was like, "Oh, throw that one in there too." And I was like, What? No, absolutely not. You will absolutely not do that. If I want that, I will buy it. I've got their card." He's like, he looked at me, and he looked at the cashier. He looked back at me, and he's like, "Put it on the card." I was like, "Dad." And I felt so terrible. I felt terrible. Terrible that I didn't make more of a stink about him buying me this necklace. Like, terrible that I did not like literally create a scene. Potentially an embarrassing scene, refusing to accept this gift. And this is an absolute psychological thing that I got going on. I cannot accept gifts. I am terrible at accepting gifts. I am terrible at accepting compliments. And I've got a story about that little bit later on. But I'm just terrible. Like I get super awkward. I'm just like, thank you. Like, I don't know. I don't deserve it. Why are you doing this? I'm and I think it comes from like the the idea or the thought or that I have everything that I have, everything that I own, I have to work to deserve it. Like I have to do something to deserve it. Like I have to provide a service. I have to, work, achieve something in order to deserve nice things. And I buy myself a lot of nice things, like I do. But in my mind, I'm like, well, yeah, it's because you fucking work your ass off for it, and you're not gonna the money's not gonna be there when you die. You're not gonna be able to use it after you die. But when other people buy me stuff, especially like for no reason, like just because gift, I don't know how to deal with it. My brain shorts out. I'm just like, I don't, and I feel terrible because to me it's like I did nothing to deserve this. Like, boo. So I felt really, really bad. But I also understood that when I give somebody a gift, just a just because gift, doesn't happen often, but I do it. I know I would feel bad if that person reacted the same way that I really want to react, and that is like rejecting it and like being awkward about it, and because that would make me feel awkward. That would make me feel like I'm pushing myself on somebody, and I know like that's not a very nice thing. So I got over it. I mean, it was a very nice gift. It was a very nice gift, and I got over it. But I still feel a little bit bad, and I was like, "Are you sure? Like, I'm gonna pay you back. I'm gonna pay I'm gonna pay you back." And I'm not, because I know it's a gift, and I would feel terrible. I would feel awful if I had spent not small amount of money on somebody as a gift, like because I wanted to do something nice for them, and then they turn around and like give me the money back, because in my mind that would be like, oh shit, I've just forced you to pay me money. Like that's terrible. Like no. So in retrospect, I'm like, I probably shouldn't have offered to pay him back because it was a gift. And I told my husband about it, and I was like, I felt so bad because I didn't, like I didn't ask, I didn't ask for it, and because I think this way, like I felt really bad. And he's like, listen, when was the last time your dad just bought his daughter a gift just because? I was like, actually, decades. Like it's been a long time. It's I mean, it's probably been longer. It was before I went out on my own. It was before I went out, and got a job as a lawyer. And he's like, he doesn't get to buy you stuff often just because you have enough money to buy yourself the stuff that you want. So he's like, just let him have this. I was like, okay. So, but I wore it the entire trip. Like I did not take this necklace off, and I don't. It's a gorgeous necklace, and I have it right here. I'm going to show you. So here it is. Isn't that pretty? Isn't that freaking gorgeous? That is a ruby in the center. And those are all diamonds. And it is 14 karat gold. The pendant, and then the chain is 14 karat, I think, rose gold. So this is it. And I will treasure this for the rest of my life because you know what it's going to remind me of? It's going to remind me of an amazing vacation I got to take with my mom and my dad, and then with my mom. And then both mom and I wore our pendants the entire trip. And we both were gushing over each other's pendants the entire trip. And it's not something I'm going to ever forget. So this pendant holds lots of wonderful, dear memories for me. And it just also happens to be absolutely gorgeous. Ah, I love it. Okay. Let me try and catch up on some comments here. Oh, yeah. Daniel, St. Augustine is just gorgeous. I've got some recommendations on some restaurants for like all the places that way, and some like other places to visit. Dawson, I mean, I'm not a father. I've never been a father. I'll have to trust you on that one. I certainly was spoiled, but I don't spoiled. Spoiled. I wasn't spoiled because I worked for everything that I had. I just was provided with the space and the platform to do that. But I was actually there. I've got a brother and a sister, and I was the only kid that never asked for help on my homework. I never asked for help on anything. Like I only asked for shit if I felt like I had an absolute need for it. Like I never asked for stuff that I wanted, even though they bought me stuff, which was great, but I never asked for it. So I don't sure I was spoiled for sure. I just didn't ask for it. Yes, that's what dads are for. He's a great dad. It is, yeah. Dawson, you're correct. Buying gifts for people with adult money is difficult. Um, especially if they're just because gifts, you know. But yeah, I would agree with that. Yes, I do plan on buying him something for no reason. I mean, in the back of my mind, it will be to repay him for this, but he will hopefully think that it's no reason. But I should, I should spoil my dad. He deserves it. Flowery language instead of being exact. Oh no, you were fine. That was absolutely fine. And it like I'm sorry if I came off as defensive. I wasn't trying to be defensive. But I would agree that I was spoiled. I just, didn't ask for it. But they gave it to me anyway. So anyway, St. Augustine was wonderful. We the first restaurant we went to the night that we got there, which was Friday, was a place called Forgotten Tonic. That place was awesome. I mean, like every place we went to was amazing. There were just some places that were more amazing than others. Forgotten Tonic was awesome. It was, all the buildings in St. Augustine are super old. It was in a super old building. They focused on like eclectic American fare and craft cocktails, and like with a specific like Southern flair. So they had a Sazerac and a Hurricane and a Ramos Gin Fizz. Those are all kind of New Orleans cocktails. They had several rum drinks, Planter's Punch, which is a Charleston thing. They had Chatham Artillery Punch, which is a Savannah thing. They had all kinds of cool stuff. And my mom was reading the description of the Ramos Gin Fizz, and she never had it. And for those of you who don't know what a Ramos Gin Fizz is, it is almost like a soda shop style cocktail. It's very sweet. It's creamy. It's got a magnificent like foam on top. It's really good. It's made with gin, a couple different citrus juices, I think, heavy cream, egg white, orange blossom water, and simple syrup. And it is, I mean, it tastes like a creamsicle. It's so good. And I remember my mom was like she was like, ew, egg whites. I'm like, I promise you, you are not going to get salmonella from an egg white. I promise. And she's like, I'll just order it without the egg white. I was like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. But since my mom is stubborn, that's exactly what she did when the waiter came. The waiter's, she came. She's like, what do you want? My mom's like, well, I want to try the Ramos Gin Fizz, but can you do that without an egg white? And like myself and the waitress were just like, no, no. So we convinced her to order it with the egg white, and boy, I'm glad we did. Because the bartenders were so excited to make this drink, which is the complete opposite of what I was expecting. The Ramos Gin Fizz is an extremely labor-intensive cocktail to make. I mean, you have to like sit there and shake it. You got to dry shake it, then you got to wet shake it. And originally, when it was first concocted, I think in the early 1800s by Ramos, who owned a bar in New Orleans. This was pre-prohibition, because ironically, he actually supported prohibition. He would require that drink to be shaken 12 minutes. So what he'd do is he'd have a bunch of bartenders. I don't know if it was 12 bartenders. That would make sense, kind of 1 minute per bartender. But he'd have a bunch of bartenders lined up at the bar. And what they do is one would mix the drink, they'd shake, and then they'd pass it on, pass it on, pass it on, pass it on. And by the time it got to the end of the line, it would be ready to pour. And the hallmark of an expertly prepared Ramos Gin Fizz, it's served in a highball glass, no ice, is you pour it in and you kind of have to let it sit so that the foam settles on top, and the foam goes up in like a column. So it should be strong. The foam should be strong enough to create its own like little column of foam right at the top. And it should be strong enough such that if you stick a straw into the foam will hold the straw. And that's exactly what this was. And it was delightful to see like the excitement of these bartenders. I swear to God, like he must have been the head bartender, because he's like, gather around, friends. He wasn't being like theatrical. He was kind of being theatrical about it, but he was being theatrical about it to like the other bartenders, not to the entire restaurant. Gather round, friends. We're about to make a Ramos Gin Fizz, and everybody's like, ooh, like collective ooh. We were sitting right next to the bar, so we could hear and see everything that was going on. And he was just beaming the entire time. He's like, then you do this, and you do this, and it's just like this, and you gotta shake, 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 and you really cool. And like he came out with his like gaggle of bartenders behind him to our table and presented the Ramos Gin Fizz. He's like, who ordered the Gin Fizz? And I was like, that would be her. So it was great to see, and it was delicious. It was delicious. It was really great to see how everybody was good. And the food was really chef's kiss. It was great. I don't think we did the pub crawl the next night. We did like a haunted pub crawl. And I loved it. I love that kind of stuff because it's mostly just history, like spooky history. It's not, they don't tell like these over dramatic spooky stories about ghosts. They tell you about the history of each of the buildings that they're in. And, usually on a haunted pub crawl, they involve ghosties or they involve, people that have died and other people's kind of experience being in those places after those people have died. And what's really cool about these tours is that, because I've been on several of these tours, is that it changes, and like several of the same tours, is that all of the stories change with the particular like tour guides. So even if you go on like the same tour with the same company going to the same places, you're going to have a bunch of different stories, which I love. It's super cool. So I really liked it. My parents were over it by like the first place. They're like, this sucks. And I was like, no, listen, it's a ghost cat. It's really cool. But I think they had fun anyway. I think they enjoyed the history, and the drinks were, of course, exquisite. And we got to eat at the restaurant at Casa Monica, which, again, amazing food. It was called Costa Brava. It's a Spanish restaurant. Really, really, really good. So we left the Casa Monica on Sunday, I think. Yeah, because we stayed Friday and Saturday, and then we left Sunday up to Savannah, which is like a 2.5-hour drive. I need liquid. The bad thing about like being sniffly is now my nose is getting so stuffed that I can't pronounce ends, and I can't taste anything, which really sucks. It's a really good cocktail. I can still taste like salt and sweet and sour. I just can't taste like the nuances of my aviation cocktail, which is unfortunate. But anyway, so 2.5-hour drive from St. Augustine or thereabouts to Savannah, and we had reserved a room at the Marshall House Inn, which is supposedly the most haunted hotel, like actual like hotel. There are a bunch of beds and breakfasts and stuff that are old, but this is the oldest hotel in St. Augustine that's still in use and the most haunted. It was used at one point as a hospital during the Civil War for Confederate soldiers, right? Because Savannah is in the South. And there was a rumor that the amputated bones from the amputated limbs of some of these soldiers were buried under the hotel. I have not found like an actual news story because this was like in the late 1990s, early 2000s to corroborate this, which makes me think it wasn't the case. But whenever you look at like stories about the Marshall House, you see reference to, oh yeah, they found like bones beneath the floorboards, and we think that they were the amputated limbs of, these Confederate soldiers. That would make sense to me, I guess. I don't know how limbs or bodies were disposed of back then, other than being like thrown into mass graves or burned or something. I feel like they probably wouldn't have buried them under the hotel. You know what I mean? Like, I feel they probably would have disposed them away from where people were residing. But they did crazy shit back then, so I don't know. And the Marshall House was wonderful. The service was wonderful. Like, every night they had a wine reception at like 5, where essentially they just gave you free wine if you were staying there. Breakfast was included. Breakfast was exquisite. And just everybody in Savannah is so nice. They're so nice. That's all the time. They're just so nice, and they're so talkative. Like, you can strike up a conversation with like a stranger at a bar, and they're just so accommodating and just so wonderful. And while we were there, I did have a haunted pub crawl like planned, and I had like reserved a spot. Um, but my mom was like, I don't want to do that. I had enough of that when we were in St. Augustine. I was like, really? It was only one, and it was only like a 2-hour thing. She's like, yeah, but I don't want to do it again. I was like, okay. So I canceled. I got my refund, and instead, what we did was we just Googled a bunch of like haunted places in Savannah and just went there at night, of course. So the first night, Repeal 33 was the first restaurant we went to. Again, great food, eclectic American. We just got a bunch of appetizers. Like we got a charcuterie board and like fried Brussels sprouts and like some kind of croquette or something. Really good. Cocktails were really good. Service was excellent. And the restaurant itself was really cool looking. And then after that, um, there's a place called Better Than Sex. It is a dessert place, just exclusively desserts and dessert drinks. And what they are famous for is taking a wine glass, dipping it in melted chocolate, you know, putting it right side up so the chocolate kind of like drips down the edges of the glass. And they serve wine like that. And what they've done is they've paired certain wines with the like they'll do white chocolate and milk chocolate and dark chocolate and they'll pair certain wines to go with this chocolate. And I think their first location was actually in Key West because I remember long time ago I went there and tried it. It was really really good. And now they have a place in Savannah, and it's like you walk in and it looks like a brothel. It's it's so good. And when the servers come to you, they speak in sexual innuendos exclusively. Like they don't speak to you like normally. And to me, that was like really impressive because I would have a hard time just speaking in sexual innuendos when I'm trying to hold on a conversation with somebody. But that's what they did. It was great. And my poor mother, she was like beet red from what I could see the entire time, and she was like, "Did he just say that?" And there was one point where he was talking about the wine, and he called it a rim job. And he's like, if you don't know what that is, and he looked at my mom, don't Google it. And my mom's like, what? He's like, don't do it. And he looked at me, he's like, don't let her do it. And I said, I'm not gonna let her do it. It was hilarious. So I got a carrot cake. She got like a s'mores cheesecake or something, and they were so good. And then the next night we explored a bunch of squares. So if you guys have never been to Savannah, it is a city full of squares. Like little like parks, all throughout the city. And what's really neat, and I didn't realize this, was the first square, well, the first design of the city was all for like military defense. And that's because the only entrance to the city from the sea at that time, if you went, it was like a main street. So the main entrance took you on a main street. Everything on the side of that was all residential. It was like it was not easy to move anywhere else but this main thoroughfare, right? This main thoroughfare led to a singular square, a big square. I forgot what the square is called now. I want to say Madison. I want to say it's Madison, but I could be wrong. I could absolutely be wrong. Look it up. But what that did was, right, you have this main corridor with big buildings. They were apartment buildings or like government buildings or whatever. And then there was a square right in the middle that broke up the main thoroughfare. So what would happen is if people came from the port, from the sea, into the city, you could snipe them as they were coming in. You disrupt their movement with the big square. And the square, of course, was surrounded by other large buildings where, like, essentially these people would just funnel in and end up in the square, and it would become a shooting stage. So that was the initial, I think, like, rationale for the squares in Savannah. But, as time progressed, they multiplied and became just beautiful little parks, and that's Savannah. So some of these squares are purportedly haunted. I did not see anything. Well, that's not entirely true. Oh, thank God. I can breathe slightly again. I don't know why. Sometimes, no, it's time to take a drink so I can actually taste it. Love it. So some squares are haunted, some squares aren't. And we decided, we're going to wait till it gets dark. We're going to go to the squares that we think are haunted, or that we have been told are haunted. Madison Square, Wright Square, Lafayette Square, There are others. Madison Square is purportedly the most haunted. That is because that's where sits atop of a mass grave full of Revolutionary soldiers. Because one of the bloodiest, if not the bloodiest, battle during the Revolutionary War was actually fought in Savannah. It was called the Siege of Savannah. It only lasted 3 hours, but there were mass casualties during that battle. And many of the dead soldiers were buried under what is now the Madison Square. Now, also around Madison Square, which I think is telling, is the Swirl Weed House. And let me just make sure that this is accurate, because I think also the Pink House is around Madison Square. Pink House, Savannah. Pink House, by the way, is a restaurant. It's an amazing restaurant. They do Southern food, Southern cooking. It's just incredible. All right, so let's just see. No, I don't want that. I just want a map. I want a map of it. Where's the map? There we go. Okay. So the old Pink House is what it's called. Okay, so the old Pink House is Reynolds Square, not Madison Square. But the Swirl Weed House, which we did ghost hunting in, is on Madison Square. We went there. We went to the Madison Square. We didn't see anything that was of interest. And note, by the way, for those of you who don't live in the South, we have what is called palmetto bugs. Palmetto bugs are denizens of hell. They are Satan's pet. They're awful. They are awful. They're just essentially huge cockroaches, fucking like mouse-sized, rodent-sized bugs. I hate bugs. I can't deal with bugs. I don't even like butterflies. I can't do ladybugs. Fuck caterpillars. I can't do bugs. And cockroaches are, I am borderline like phobic. I have a borderline phobia of cockroaches. I have so many funny stories about cockroaches, all at my own expense. I hate them. And in the South, there are lots of them. And especially during the rainy season, they don't like the wet, they don't like the rain, so they like to come into your house to seek shelter from said rain. And it's in the summer that they fly. They don't fly, I don't think, during like the winter or the colder months. They fly during the summer. Can you imagine that? Like a bug the size of a fucking hummingbird, probably bigger than a hummingbird, coming at you. They smell fear, by the way. Those motherfuckers smell fear. They come after you. I have a story to corroborate this. So I am sitting on my couch watching television. The kitchen is behind me where there is food and water, and then there's a bathroom on the other side of me where there is more water. Right? There is nothing of interest in this living room for a roach. Nevertheless, we found a roach. It was hanging out. It had gotten in through the garage door, and it was hanging out in the kitchen. And I was just, you know what? I'm alone. We're waiting for the hubs to get home so that he can handle the situation. And in my mind, I'm like, that roach he is in utopia right now. Like he's in the kitchen where he has access to water and garbage and like rotting things that are in the garbage and like fresh food. Like you have everything that you could want in the kitchen. You stay there. Alas, he did not. So I'm like, I've kind of forgotten this roach is here, and I'm watching TV and I hear this kind of like what it sounds like when something flies and lands not gracefully. And I'm like, please don't be what I think it is. Please don't be what I think it is. Please don't be what I think it is. And I look over, and is it exactly what I think it is? It is the roach. He has flown out of the kitchen and landed in the hallway that leads to the bathroom. Now, if he turns right, he gets to the living room. So I'm watching it. I'm like, I was like, well, he must be going to the bathroom, because the bathroom there's water, and they like hanging out. That roaches love hanging out like under that toilet bowl, like under the lip. Oh, I have nightmares about that because I've experienced that before, sitting on the toilet, only to get up to find that you've been sitting on a goddamn roach the entire time. Oh yeah. So I was like, oh, he's probably heading to the bathroom. Nope, that little motherfucker takes 2 steps and then he starts to turn and head directly towards me for no goddamn reason. The only thing I can think of is that they sense fear and they like it. Denizens of hell. Anyway, so that was a very long-winded way of saying I am highly cognizant of my surroundings in the South during the summertime. Because those little guys they're not little, those assholes like to come out at night and out of their stupid little dark hiding places, like to come out at night and like scuttle around. So I'm hyper aware of it. And when I say that I did not see a single palmetto bug in Savannah, I did not see I saw a big beetle, but not a single palmetto bug until we got to Lafayette Square. Lafayette Square is the location of another very haunted bed and breakfast called the Hamilton Turner Inn. Very haunted. In fact, we stayed there several years ago, and my mom said that she awoke to a cat sitting on the end of her bed. And when she blinked, the cat disappeared. So we think it's haunted, not just by cats. So we get to Lafayette Square, and I'm walking around, I'm looking around, I'm listening, and I almost step on a palmetto bug. Right now, if they're in my house, I will like armor up, like broom, like a shield, like a fucking helmet. Like I will armor up and like kill the thing if they're in my home. But if they're outside, I don't kill them. That's their house. I'm intruding on their house. If they intrude on my house, that's when they die. So I didn't step on it. I'm just like, and I hopped gracefully out of the way. When I say hopped gracefully, I mean like I probably made a weird noise and like jumped flailing out of the way, only to almost land on another one. And when I looked down, I kid you not, it was every foot or so there was a palmetto bug. They were carpeting the square, and it was a scene out of a goddamn horror movie. Like my mom and I was like, my mom also shares this phobia, and I'm pretty sure she's the one who gave it to me. Thanks, Mom. I was like, okay, I don't want you to panic right now. Which was that's the worst thing you could tell somebody when you're trying to get them not to panic, is tell them not to panic, right? Because immediately she's like, what do you mean? And I said, look down. And she did, and that woman, like, she made a squeaky noise that I've never heard come out of her. And like we linked arms and we're like, okay, we gotta get out of here. So we very gingerly made our way out without like crunching on these palmetto bugs. And as soon as we got out of the square, they were gone. Like they weren't anywhere. We did not see them anywhere else in the city, which was really weird. Which makes me think either there's something there, like something in the square that is attracting them, like some kind of, I don't even know, food, prey, something. They are scavengers as well. We didn't smell any, like we didn't smell like the smell of death or anything. They just really liked that square. And so my mom's like, oh, the square is possessed by the devil. The devil possesses that square. I was like, you know what? I would not be surprised. So that was kind of weird. I would be interested to know, like, what the ecology is in that square beneath those plants, like whether or not there's something that the roaches are just attracted to in that particular square. But it would seem odd to me because every square in Savannah has essentially the same landscaping and the same plants. So I'm not sure. I don't know. What do you guys think? You tell me. Hey, Inverted Phoenix. Good to see ya. It was fun. Less relaxing, but a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Oh, the Pirate House. Yes, the Pirate House. So there's a Pirate House in Savannah. I think it's called the Pirate House. It's a restaurant now. I think it's always been a restaurant, actually. But it has a reputation for pirates, like back in the day, like the 1700s, where pirates would like come into this restaurant and Shanghai people to be on their pirate crew. And that is also a very haunted spot in Savannah. We did not have the opportunity to go to the Pirate House when we were there. We were trying new places that we had not been. We had already been to the Pirate House before. Yeah, Blair. Yeah. I know they do. They fly it like face off. And there's like motherfucker, like, so here's the story. When I was in law school, now in law school we had lots of big, thick textbooks, case books, and I at the time was studying sales, leases, and licenses. And it was like a Friday or a Saturday, and my parents were out at a party. I still lived with them. My sister, I think, lived in New York at the time, and my brother had moved out in his own house. I was staying with them because I didn't have a house yet. So, no, I think my brother was still living there. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So they're gone, and I'm upstairs, like reading or something in my bed. And out of the corner of my eye, I see something moving on the floor. And there were no animals in the house at that time. There's a cat there now, but there were no animals. So I was like, I knew exactly what it was. I was like, God damn it. And I looked over, and sure shit, it was a palmetto bug. It was like this big. It was a big boy. He was a big boy. And it was like 11 o'clock at night. I was like, I am not going to be able to sleep until I dispose of this creature. And trigger warning, this involves violence against animals. But I had my sales leases and licenses book next to my bed. And I stood up on the bed, and there's a fan right above the bed with it's like a push, like a pull cord to turn the light on. So I turn the light on the fan. I'm looking for the roach. I see it. It's right at the edge of the bed. And I just kind of watch it. And eventually it exits my room. Just meanders out of the room into the hallway, and I follow it. And I'm right behind it, and I turn on the hall light, and I manage to sneak right up on it. And I have my book, and I just do one of these. Just drop the book. Right on the roach. He didn't see the fucking thing coming. And if he did, he was dumb. He didn't get out of the way. And if that weren't enough, me and my all 100 pounds jumped on top of the book numerous times, like jump, and then I left it. I didn't pick it up. And rather than feeling safe and going back to bed, my paranoid mind was like, what if there are more? And also, I can't go to bed if there's like a dead, like icky roach right outside my bedroom. So what I did was I went downstairs. I perched upon the counter, the kitchen counter, and waited up there, crouched like a little golem, clutching a broom and surveying the house around me like a little goddamn gargoyle until my parents came home by like 2 a.m. and they were sloshed. Should not have been driving. And they come in, and they come into a scene which I imagine was probably not something they were expecting, because all the lights in the house were on. All of the lights in the house were on. And there's their 24-year-old daughter who had recently graduated college and who was now attending law school, crouched in jammy pants, like crouched, like Golem, with a broom on the kitchen counter. And at the moment they walked in, I was like, oh my God, thank God. And they're like, what? Dad's like, what are you doing? My mom understood immediately. She's like, where is it? Like, I had said nothing. I had not said a word, except for hello, and I'm glad you're here. And my mom immediately, she's like, where is it? And I was like, it's upstairs. And she looks at my dad and she's like, that's all you, honey. And he's like, goes upstairs and he disposes of it. And he's like, you've ruined you. I don't know how you're going to wash all the guts off of that book. And I was like, I don't know either, but it's not my book anymore. I ain't using that book anymore. I will borrow somebody else's. I will return that book, guts and all, and the next person can deal with the roach guts, not I. So anyway, I am terrified of roaches. I hate them. And stayed up all night waiting for my parents to get home as a 24-year-old woman crouched on the kitchen counter with a broom. Yeah, that's me. I wish we had like cameras in the house that could have caught it. Because if I look back on it now, I'm sure that it'd be fucking hilarious. But anyway, so Savannah. So the next night we went to a restaurant called Alligator Soul, and guys, oh my God. We couldn't get into the Pink House because they're like booked out until July, which really sucks. But if you are ever in Savannah, go to Alligator Soul. It's in an old wheat storehouse. I think it's off Barnard. I'll tell you exactly where it is. Alligator Soul. Savannah. Where are you at? They are, Barnard. 114 Barnard Street, Savannah, Georgia. Amazing food, amazing food, great, like great atmosphere. I was gonna say aesthetic, but also aesthetic. And they've got like super cool. They've got like exotic game meat. So like when I went, I had antelope. My mom got the duck. And like the appetizers were fucking on point. They were delicious. The drinks were everything about that restaurant was on point. Everything from the service to the apps to the cocktails to the atmosphere to the music. The music was spectacular. Somebody had like an amazing Pandora station, which was just full of like jazz covers of modern music, which I loved. Like they did the Gorillas in like old jazz style, which was really cool. So we did Alligator Soul that night, and then the last night that we were there was when we did the Sorrel Weed House. So I think y'all have been with me long enough to know that I love ghost stories. I love the ghosties. I love reading about it. It is fascinating to me. Ghosties, cryptids, like weird phenomenon. Not so much aliens anymore because we obviously now know they exist. I mean, and the thought that they never existed in the first place is really stupid. Like the thought that we are alone in this universe as like the only intelligent life forms is dumb to me. Like really, the universe that has literally no bounds. You think that not another like intelligent life form exists? It's a very arrogant way of thinking, so I never prescribe to that. But in any case, I'm into like the paranormal. I love it. It's really cool. And I'm now getting into true crime, which is even more terrifying because in my mind, the most terrifying beings, entities on this earth are humans. We're real scary. And unfortunately, most of the true crime stories involve young women who are murdered, which sucks. But that's neither here nor there. So the Swirl Weed House is very haunted and has been actually investigated by the Travel Channel, Ghost Hunters, BuzzFeed, and I think there was one other show that went to the Swirl Weed House. Sorrel. Is it two L's? Swirl Weed House? Let's see. One L. So Sorrel and then dash weed. Because the first owners were like Francis Sorrel, or like the Sorrel family, and then the second owners were the Weed family. It's a beautiful house, and I've been on both the architectural tour and now I've been on the ghost tour, and both tours were great. Like the architectural tour, you walk around this house that was built. When was this house built? Let's Wikipedia this stuff. Oh, I don't want to buy tickets to a ghost tour. I mean, I do, but like not right now. Sorry, it's the first thing that came up on Google. All right, here we go. Why would you tell me when you were built? 1835. Construction began in 1835. It was completed in 1840 by Francis Sorrel, and then later owned by the Weeds. But who are the Weeds? Let's see. Well, I'll just read to you from Wikipedia. Okay, so the Sorrel Weed House was the boyhood home of Brigadier General Moxley Sorrel, and there's actually a photograph of him in the house, who fought for the Confederate States of America during the Civil War. He served under General James Longstreet, and after the war, wrote Recollections of a Confederate Staff Officer. Blah, blah, blah. General Robert E. Lee visited the home in late 1861 and early 1862. There was the reason I'm kind of pausing was because we did like a house tour of a house that had a dedicated room for General Robert E. Lee, but I don't think it was a Sorrel Weed House. So General Robert E. Lee and Francis Sorrel had been friends since the early 1830s. All right, let's see. A.J. Cohen Sr., a prominent Savannah businessman, bought the Sorrel Weed House in 1941. Cohen family lived there for more than 50 years. Cohen. So they didn't really talk about the weeds, really, here. designed by Charles Kluskey. Don't know who he was. That's interesting. Kluskey also designed the governor's mansion in Milledgeville. I don't know where that is. Even Wikipedia acknowledges it's haunted. Sorrel Wheat House has a reputation for being one of the most haunted buildings in Savannah. And it goes on to tell the stories that I'm about to tell you. Let's see. Architectural style. Built in the style of early Greek revival because it's got like columns, like the big columns. And like the very, 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 very high ceilings, like big old baseboards. Now the flooring, which like this is boring, I'm sure, for people who aren't into architecture, but and I won't spend a lot of time on it. But the flooring was really interesting because the flooring was wood made with, I think it's like Savannah pine, like specifically Savannah pine. I don't remember. It's some sort of pine that's only found in the South that you're not allowed to cut those trees down anymore because either they're endangered or they don't exist anymore. But what they would do is, if you guys like look at any kind of like wood floor, you can see the planks. You can see like the individual planks where they start and where they end, right? In these southern houses, you don't see that. It's just one continuous plank that runs the length of the room. That is because they would cut down these trees and essentially grind them down to these planks that they could then, and I mean, they were big, thick planks, which is why you don't see a lot of warping of these floors of these really old southern houses because they use these, whole ass trees to floor their houses. They were also extremely expensive, which is why you only see them in very large manors in the South. So I thought that was really cool. But and when you look at southern houses, and I don't know if this is the same with northern houses. I've not looked at northern houses. I'm very kind of tuned in and focused on southern houses, especially after visiting Charleston, which was incredible. But like the deep South, we're not talking about Florida, because in Florida you see a lot of Mediterranean style houses. They're concrete block, or they're block, or just full brick. There's no frame. And they kind of look like boxes. They've got the red clay tile roofs, and they look like Spanish houses, right? In the South, you see lots more English, French inspired architecture. And in that, you see lots of elements of like Greek revival, Regency style, federal style. It doesn't look anything like the houses in old Florida. And where was I going with this? I just totally lost my train of thought. Oh, yes. Okay. So one of the things you saw with these southern houses, and I don't think that it's something you'd see up north. And I'm not just talking about like up north, you see much more steepled kind of roofs, and that's to help so that the snow doesn't gather and like on a more flat roof and just cause lots of pressure. But what you saw down here was carriage houses and slave quarters, because in the South there was slavery, and the Sorrel Wheat House was, built by a man who I believe made his fortune in the cotton trade and became obviously a slave owner because he lived in the South. Now, his house was not a plantation. He just got involved, I think, in the shipping, maybe manufacturing of cotton, but not in the growing of the cotton. And so you have the main house, big freaking house, beautiful house, basement, first floor, second floor, and there's a third floor. And then you've got what's called the carriage house, which is right next door. And it's not a small house. I mean, it's a 2-story, big ass house. It's a little bit more narrow than like the main house, but it is the same length. And that's where they kept the stables and the horses, and the slaves would live on the second floor in bunk beds. By the way, Savannah in the summer with no air conditioning on the second floor because heat rises is fucking miserable. Absolutely miserable. Put that out there. But so like the slaves would they'd cook the food, they'd run the house, they'd keep it clean, they'd watch the children, they'd tend to the horses, all that good stuff. While the lady and the man and lady of the house would essentially do finances. The man was usually responsible for making the money and bringing the money back. The woman was responsible for essentially managing the house. She was like a manager. So the Sorrells, Francis Sorrell, originally married um, a woman that he fell in love with. That he actually fell in love with, and he married her. She was part of a very well-to-do family. She popped out about 3 kids, and then passed away because back then people just died. Yellow fever, surgery complications, other complications, uh, uh, fucking dueling, which is the stupidest thing. But people didn't live very long back then. So she died. We're not sure how. It was either yellow fever or some kind of complication in her pregnancy. And so he married her younger sister, Matilda. It was an arranged marriage, but I think eventually they did kind of fall for each other. Popped out another 7 kids, only 6 of which lived to adulthood. I think one of them like died from yellow fever, I think, as an infant or a toddler. And the story behind the haunting comes from this. So there usually with these houses there was a head slave, like a person who everybody like he or she was essentially like the butler or the concierge, like head person who coordinated the cooking and the cleaning and like getting ready for big balls and events. Like that was the person. And for the Sorrells, that person's name was Molly. And Molly had actually 2 children while working under the Sorrells. And the story goes that in Molly's room, back up. Molly's room, she had her own room because she was so important. So she had her own room in the carriage house. Everybody else had to live in bunk beds in like the main room, but she had her own private room. And there's a window from her room that you can, like, if you're standing on the second floor in the Sorrell house, you can see like directly into Molly's room. So one night, as the story goes, Matilda is planning a party. She's preparing for a ball, and she can't find Molly. She's like, "Where the fuck is Molly?" So she's looking around. Nobody knows where she is, and she's looking around. And finally, she goes up to Molly's room, where she finds her husband. Now, the account is not detailed at all about what they were doing, about whether it was a consensual like relationship, whether he was just there visiting, or whether like he was forcing himself on her, which was, by the way, not uncommon. But it upset Matilda so much so that she dashed away from the room, ran downstairs, ran up to the 3rd floor, ran out on the balcony, which overlooked the courtyard, which, by the way, it's not all flat. There are planting boxes made up of stones, and it's very sharp, like sharp corners. Unless you aim and there's no wind or anything that you do on your way down, you're probably going to hit one of those corners coming down. You're not going to hit flat on the ground. So you probably see where I'm going with this. She ran out to the balcony, threw herself off the balcony, and killed herself. The story goes because she was so distraught over seeing her husband in an affair of sorts with the slave. 2 or 3 weeks later, Molly shows up dead, hanging from the rafters in her room. Now, because slaves were not considered people back then, they were considered chattel, kind of much like women, to be honest. There was not an investigation into what happened, what she did. It was just assumed that she committed suicide because she was so distraught over having caused her mistress so much woe and awfulness. In my mind, especially after watching these true crime shows, here's what happened. And this is total conjecture, total opinion, not based on any kind of evidence or fact, other than my understanding of like how stuff was back then and just how just human nature, right? So in my mind, I can't say whether the relationship was consensual between Sorrell and Molly. My thought is probably not. Like, this guy was an old guy at the time that it happened. Like, he was an old dude. Molly was a young woman. And unless she was trying to get ahead in life, which I don't think what would have been possible even if she had a relationship with Sorrell, because if it got out at that time in our history that he was having an affair with a black woman, like, he would be ruined. So if it was consensual, maybe it was this. Maybe he promised her something, and she's like, oh, "Okay, I'm going to be free." Maybe he promised her to like she could buy her way out of slavery for a discounted price or something. I don't know. Either that or it was non-consensual and he was forcing himself on her. As far as Molly's death, I don't think she did it because she was so distraught over, losing her mistress. Right? Like the person who is responsible for you being a slave. Like, I don't know. Like if I saw that happen, I'd be like, ooh, that sucks. That's gross. That's gonna be a mess to clean up. And that'll be the end of it. Like I wouldn't care. Certainly not enough to like maybe some tears were shed or whatever, but like certainly not enough to where I'd fucking hate myself. But that's just me. So I think it was foul play. I think the husband wanted to hide his affair with the slave, so he killed her. My mom actually thinks that he killed his wife too. My mom thinks that he followed his wife back to the house and pushed her off because he was trying to hide it. Who knows? I don't know. But those are the two spirits that are said. Those are some of the two spirits that are said to haunt this Whirlweed House. And I will say that, so apparently, spirits can show themselves to you in a number of different ways. They can be visual apparitions, they can be sounds, they can be touch, smells. Some people taste stuff, which is weird. Some people feel things, like feeling like oppressed or depressed, happy or sad, and randomly, right? Feeling scared, I think that's probably something, well, you psych yourself out, but just like getting random feelings of like happiness or depression or like whatever. Um, to me, that's a little more like, why? That's weird. You should like if you're on a ghost tour and you're afraid of ghosts, like fear is pretty common. But if you're on a ghost tour, you're afraid of ghosts, and then all of a sudden like feel really, 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 really sad about something, that's a little weird. So I remember going up to the carriage house, getting to the second floor, and just feeling overwhelming sadness. I was just like, "Oh my god, this really sucks." But it's probably because it was a very tragic history. Especially since I didn't think that she killed herself because she felt bad. I think that she was murdered, and just to me, I was like, I didn't want to stay up there long. I was just like, "This is terribly depressing. I don't want to be here." But I was able to capture something on camera. And I already posted it to Patreon, but I want to show you guys here on YouTube. So when we went to do the ghost tour, our tour guide was amazing, by the way. Like she had it down pat. She didn't have to look from like an outline or anything. She was just talking from her own experience, and she was very clear, very concise. No chop in the story at all. I mean, it was very, very well told story. And she actually showed us a couple of photographs taken by people that were on the tour that I look at them and I cannot explain other than they were doctored, which I guess would be easy for a tour guide company to do, right? But the way that she kind of postured it was these were taken by guests. We've done nothing to them. They sent this into us after the tour. And it's weird. So one of the photographs, ooh, if you are to take it for what it is, shows a guy in the parlor. There's a big mirror in the parlor right above this mantle. And you can see him. He's got his phone, as if he's taking a photograph of either himself or the room. And at the time, according to the tour guide, because she was there, she said he was the only one in the room because every now and then you'll get like a photographer who likes to capture the room without a bunch of people standing in it. So they tend to like hang back or they'll like wander in away from the tour. So that's what this guy was doing. He was just taking pictures with his phone, apart from the main tour guide and tour people. So according to her, there was nobody else in the room. But in this photograph, you can see clearly him taking the picture, kind of himself on the mirror. But in the background, there is a little girl, who's profiled, and it looks like she's like walking into the second parlor room, because the parlor is one big room, but it's separated by like a door that can if you open the doors, they kind of go into they're like sliding doors. That was creepy as fuck. Assuming the tour guide was telling us the truth, and like in fact nobody else was in the room, and in fact there were no actual little girls on the tour that night. That's something that I cannot explain. And then the second photograph she showed us was I don't remember. She showed us two photographs. I just remember the second one. But the other thing that she showed us was a clip from the Ghost Hunters, the Travel Channel, I think, where they were in the carriage house and they did an EVP. I'm not going to tell you what it said because I want you to Google it yourself. I don't remember what episode or season it was, but just Google Ghost Hunters Sorrel Weed House, and you should be able to EVP. Ghost Hunters Sorrel Weed House EVP, and you should be able to pull it up. It is bone chilling. It is fucking bone chilling. And again, take it for a grain of salt. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if it's been doctored. I don't know. But Sorrel Weed seems to pride itself on that. It plays it for every tour that they do, every ghost tour that they do. And it is absolutely bone chilling. Bone chilling. So look it up. But one of the most haunted areas in that house was the basement. And that is, we think, because it was used as a doctor's office by one of the members of the house who was a surgeon. He used that as his office. And as we all know, back in the 1800s, hygiene was not on everybody's radar. I mean, like that was around the time where people were like pissing and shitting and then throwing their piss and shit into the same river that they drank from and were wondering why people were dying of yellow fever. You know what I mean? Like, not great. It was considered good to have a 50% survival rate as like a surgeon. Like, that was the time. So there were probably lots of people who, like, those walls were the last thing they saw being alive. You know what I mean? Like, so lots of energy down there. And I tell you what, I caught some shit on video and on photographs that I can't explain. And I found a bunch of stuff in a video. This is really interesting. I took 3 videos. One was 27 seconds, one was 30 seconds, and then one was 2 minutes and 42 seconds. Most of the weird shit that I found while I was combing through, these videos was in the 2 minute and 42 second video. And I immediately, when I got back to the hotel, I looked through it and I found these things. And I tell you truly, when I look back through the video now, I can't fucking find it. I cannot find it, and it is so distressing to me. I'm just like, are you kidding me? I caught this. I know I caught this. I saw it when I got back to the hotel, and now it's not there anymore. God damn it. I'm going to keep looking for it because it was really cool. And once I find it, I will post it, but I will describe to you what I found. There was one point where I'm panning the camera. And by the way, like, I can't see anything with my eyes. This is all picked up by the phone. So I'm panning the camera past this brick column which frames the staircase up, right? So, and there are lights, kind of very few, not a lot. It was pretty dark when we went up. There were very few lights. And of course, they're all red because red is creepy. But the light cast a shadow of the stairway railing onto one of the columns, one of the brick columns. And and all of the people in this tour are solidly downstairs and they are gathered around the tour guide who is talking. I was the idiot who broke off and started filming places around the basement. So, to my knowledge, nobody was upstairs. Nobody was near me because I was right by the stairs to walk upstairs. And as I'm panning, a shadow. So remember, I was telling you that the shadow of the railing was cast on one of these columns. So it was basically just like these little stripes. So red stripe, shadow stripe, red stripe, shadow stripe, railing. And what I saw was, right, here's like the shadow of the railing, a shadow going that way, as if a person was walking up the stairs. That was weird. And I did not see that shadow until I looked back at the footage, and I have no way to explain it. It was real weird. And I, like, thinking back on it, I don't remember anybody being upstairs, walking around upstairs. It was just us on this tour guide. So that was weird. I saw some orbs, and another time I was panning the camera, like past this doorway. And, like in the dark, cameras can get pixelated and, things can be blurry. But with this camera, it's pretty good. Like, it's pretty good about not doing that, even in low light settings. And as I'm panning, this like area of fuzziness, like blur, like this area of blur, and it's very clear that it's like circular-ish in shape. passed through the door, like as I'm panning. So essentially there was like an area of blurred like wall and room and space, and then it went through the door and then it was gone. Um this probably can be explained by just like poor camera quality and because it's dark. But it's very noticeable to me, and it's like I've never seen that happen on a camera on anything that I've shot with that camera. So that was another thing. But I think the best one, and I've actually already posted, like I told you guys, I posted this on Patreon. The best photograph that I got, I think, that not even my very skeptical father can explain, was this. I'm going to show you. Also, I took a bunch of, I did a photo shoot earlier today, and you guys are going to be the first to see it. After I edit it, I have a bunch of shit that I got to edit because I've been on vacation the entire week. So I apologize for the delay. That stuff will be up this week, but let's see if I can find that one photograph. Here it is. Okay, so one of the things that the tour guide told us was when we are taking photographs, take 3 in quick succession. So snap, 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 snap. She says the reason is because you'll have, if you capture something, you'll have a baseline, right? So if you capture something and it's not there, and then like 2 minutes later you take another photograph, you might not capture anything, right? So if you have like a baseline to compare, other photographs to, you can look for any discrepancies between the photographs, and that is exactly what happened here. So the first, is that the no? The first one, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the first 3 photographs I'm going to show you are of a doorway. This is in the basement. Let's try and get the glare. Okay. So you can see the paint is kind of splotchy, right? Splotchy paint. It's an old house. That's in the basement. We've got a little bit of light coming in this way. So that's the first photo, right? Second photo. Oh, and you guys can see what I was talking about earlier with the red kind of shining through the stairs. There's the column that I was talking about. So that's the second photograph. Same area, different angle, but taken within seconds of the first, because I'm kind of walking around, right? So there's that little splotch of paint right there. There's the doorway. Okay. Same area, taken within seconds of the first 2. All right, you can see the splotch of paint. That's right there. What the fuck is that? What is that? What is that? What is that? That wasn't there in the first 2. So I thought that was really neat. I don't know what it is. Everybody tells me it's a ghost. So maybe it's a ghost, but maybe you guys have different opinions. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, see you later, Mr. Enigma. So yeah, so like super cool. And I'm looking at it more. Whoa, okay. So at first there's just like this like little blob here. If I zoom in, like zoom in. What's that? Does that look like a collar to you? Like maybe like here are the shoulders and like here's a collar? I don't know. I don't know. That's weird. That's weird. I've never caught anything like that on camera before. It was really cool. Okay, it's 2 minutes and 32 seconds. So this is the video that I took. And, there's like I'm going really fast. I'm trying to, and what I was trying to find was that moment in the video where like there was a shadow that moved up the stairs from what I could see. I can't find it. But once I do find it, I will show you. It was very spooky. It was very spooky. It was very spooky. And apparently there's like a ghost of a little girl down in the basement that likes to play hide and seek and like will grab your ankles. but apparently it doesn't feel like you're being grabbed. It feels like a bug is crawling up your like ankle. And my mom says that she absolutely felt like a big bug crawling up her ankle because she freaked out. Because remember, like she has a phobia of cockroaches, so like she felt it, she's like, "Blah!" And like she brushed it, but there was nothing there. So maybe it was a little girl. So that I think was the most successful like tour, like ghost tour I've ever been on. That was actually I actually caught stuff on camera, which was really really cool. But I wanted to show you some of the treasures we got from Savannah. I got some treasures in Charleston, but most of the treasures I got in Savannah because I love that city. Savannah is big on honey and bees. There's a Savannah Bee Company. They do mead and honey, and it's wonderful and glorious. Look them up online. Buy their shit. Shameless plug. They do not sponsor this video at all. They're just some place that I really love. But I got this really cool pen. Bee vomit. I love it. And Savannah obviously is very artsy because you've got the Savannah most favorite. Look! It's a cute little robot and he's playing video games. I love this because it reminds me of the Iron Giant, which was a terribly depressing animated film back when I was a kid. But if you are interested, well, I'll show you who the artist is after I show you everything. That's the first one. And then this one. Look! I love it! And then this is the best. This is my favorite. This is my all-time favorite. Look how cool this is. Look how cool! I love it. And the artist is Robots in Rowboats. And he has a website, and it is robotsinrowboats.com. I'll leave it up here for you guys to write that down because totally child. Or her. I don't know if it's a girl or a guy. But absolutely I love it. These are prints. I bought them. I was like, I need them. I don't know what I'm gonna do with them, but I need them. So I bought them. So with sadness in my heart, I left Savannah and went to Charleston. I'd never been to Charleston before. And it is a glorious city. I feel like Savannah is more of a tourist town, kind of like St. Augustine. Like you don't see grocery stores in like the historic district. You don't see like convenience stores. There's like one, it's like a super fancy gas station, but that in and of itself has become its own kind of like tourist attraction. And it's just like, it's very geared toward their very spooky, violent historical past, whereas Charleston seems to be, I mean, Charleston is actually older than Savannah. Charleston was first established in 1670. And Savannah, remember, was founded, I think, in 1733. And St. Augustine was 1565. So Charleston is more of like an operational city, kind of like the city that I live in. They've obviously, like they are very historic and very proud of their history. And, it's a huge tourist attraction for sure. But, you go down King Street, which is the main street in like historic Charleston, and there are convenience stores. There are, there's shopping, J. Crew and like Target and H&M. And if you follow King Street all the way to the water, you're going to end up in one of the most glorious neighborhoods ever. Like these houses, you guys. Holy cow. Let me see if I can find you a picture of like one of the most luxurious. Okay. So this is just the door. This is just the door. This is a 4-story house. And I tried with my 5'1" self to capture the entirety of this house. You can see like there's the roof right up there. It looks like an office, like it looks like an apartment or something or a hotel. It is not. This is a single family goddamn house. This is a single family house. And absolutely gorgeous. Like look at how pretty. Everything is just appointed, incredibly preserved. Also, this house was built in the 1800s, by the way. Like, look at that. Absolutely stunning. That was on King Street. And in the South, you have what's called like side yards and side gardens. And it's become a huge thing. Like I think both Charleston and Savannah, there in the spring, these people who own these houses will open their gardens up for people to just come in and look. These houses, which are like $4 and $5 million houses nowadays. So it was spectacular to be able to walk on King Street and just see these incredible moments in time, that have been preserved so well. And what's really cool is that both in Savannah and Charleston, when you see these old houses, now in the South, most houses have big porches because it's fucking hot, right? It is hot, and sometimes it's nice to get out and not be in the stuffy house. Most of these houses have really high ceilings because the air travels to the top. So at least you'll have some portion that's not as hot as the higher portion. You're going to have lots of windows, ceiling fans when there was electricity, and in every room. But those are kind of the characteristics of a Southern house. Oftentimes they had carriage houses and slave quarters. And what's really cool is that on all of the outdoor porches that we saw in Charleston, almost all of them, they were painted in a color called haint blue. Haint. Haint blue. Does anybody know what that is? In the comments. Anybody know what haint blue is and why anybody would paint the ceilings of the porches blue? Where the rest of the porch, like the columns and like the gingerbread, on the outside, everything else is white. But the ceiling is blue. Anything? Anybody? Nothing? Okay. I'll tell you. I know the suspense is killing you. So haint blue. Let me see. Civil War. No. Not because of the Civil War. I mean, though the trend started, I think, around that time. Haint is a Gullah term for ghost or spirit. And it was believed, according to Wikipedia, in Gullah culture, and Gullah, if anybody who's my age remembers Gullah Island, right? That show that was, I think it was PBS or something. Gullah, I think it is Gullah Island, is off the coast of Charleston. And according to their lore, this specific shade of blue, haint blue, wards off evil spirits. So, people in Charleston and in Savannah have painted the ceilings of their porch haint blue to ward off evil spirits. What's also really interesting that I didn't know until, I was looking and I was like, why are there blue ceilings? And my mom explained, she's like, yeah, that's haint blue. That's to ward off evil spirits. I was like, oh. She's like, did you not ever wonder why we painted our house blue? And I was like, no, it's just a really cool color. She's like, I was like, oh. Remember, my mom is an ordained Wiccan priestess. She's a witch. So that made all kinds of sense. I was like, wow, that's really cool. Why stop at the porch ceilings? Why not just paint the whole ass thing blue? That's what my mom did. But I thought that was really interesting. Look it up. It's really cool. So in Charleston. And we didn't do any spooky stuff in Charleston. Really. I mean, we went to a haunted restaurant, supposedly. It's called Poogan's Porch. Poogan Porch. And that's got a great story behind it. I'll get into it a little bit later on. But the place that we stayed was called Hotel Bennett. It's a newer hotel. It was actually, the construction was just recently completed in 2019. That is the most luxurious hotel I have ever stepped my grubby little foot in. It was incredible, you guys. If any of you are looking to travel to Charleston for whatever reason and have the money to spend, go to Hotel Bennett. Holy cow. First of all, it's huge. It's huge. It's right on King Street, right in the heart of Charleston. They've got a rooftop pool, a rooftop bar, another bar downstairs, they're huge. And we got, my parents, not me, I don't have this kind of money. We got what's called the King's Club access. And we get a different colored card, like access card. So regular access cards are gold colored. Our access card was dark blue colored. And what it grants us is access to the club, which is on the 6th floor. And it's free food. I mean, free, you pay for it. But included in this package is food all day long. And good food, full hot breakfast, eggs, bacon, sausage, cereal, pastries, juice, mimosas, everything. Full ass lunch. The only thing they don't do is a full dinner, but they do heavy hors d'oeuvres. around happy hour. Full bar, all the drinks were included. So no matter how many drinks you ordered, and I'm talking like Mai Tais and French 75s and like gin and tonics, like no matter how many you ordered, it was all included in. So like you could literally go up to the club, eat and drink all day, and not spend a penny more than what you paid for to get access to that club. Incredible. And there were 2 servers that would kind of like supervise the club, make sure everybody would get what they needed. By the way, they had a cappuccino machine, and I kind of like, I must now save up to get this cappuccino machine. It was incredible. And it was just like the staff were so wonderful, and like this woman Tammy was there most of the time that we were there, and she was just this sunshine daisy of a person, just the kindest human being. Like every time we came up, she remembered us. She was like, "Hey, welcome back." She was the one that got me onto lavender French 75s, which you haven't tried yet. Oh my god, so good. And I must have had 10 over the course of the 2 days that I was there. They were so good. Don't blame me. Don't judge me. They were so good. What she did was she had like Monin lavender syrup, which was in the tea station. Right, they had a tea station and a coffee station. They had like syrups that you could put in there. So it was lavender syrup, lemon juice, gin, and then champagne. And it came out as this beautiful, like purpley kind of a color. This is a deviation. This is not a French 75. And I downed so many of those motherfuckers. And I don't remember ever getting drunk, which may or may not be a good thing. Like maybe I did get drunk and I just don't remember. But I don't remember like getting absolutely shit faced. And I never woke up with a hangover after drinking those drinks. And I think it was just because the vacation gods were watching over me, and they're like, "No, you're gonna enjoy this vacation hangover free." That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Charleston was incredible. The architecture was insane. I bought a couple of books while I was there. I bought a ghost book, and I bought the history of cocktails because I'm a lush. And I bought like a walking tour book that just, because we didn't do any tours when we were in Charleston. And the book just basically like was like, and this structure was built at this time, and here's a story behind that. It was great. So next time I go to Charleston, I will have the book, and I'll be able to like do an actual tour, or maybe I'll just, I don't know, do a tour guide. Anyway, so it was great. We went to Pugin's Porch for dinner. Pugin's Porch is a very well-known spot for the locals. And the story behind the name is just heartwarming. So the structure was an old Victorian house owned by a couple of spinsters back in the early 1800s. They eventually passed away, and the house was purchased by somebody else, and eventually it became a restaurant. Now, in that time, there's stray dogs all around Charleston, and one particular dog, whose name was Pugin, took a liking to this particular house, and he'd always just hang out on the porch. And when it became a restaurant, the restaurant owners never chased him away because they liked him. Anybody who doesn't want a dog on the porch, that person is like, look out, they're evil, they're psychopathic. I don't know. Anybody who doesn't like dogs is a psychopath. So Pugin would hang out on this porch and greet, customers to the restaurant, and just like everybody loved him. And unfortunately, he passed away in 1979. And so the owners of the now restaurant renamed the restaurant to Pugin's Porch. And if that's not the most heartwarming story you ever heard, I don't know what is. And apparently Pugin is still around, and apparently he shows up to people on the porch, just being his cute little doggy self. Pugin's Porch also has amazing food. I actually posted some on my story. It was I got the shrimp and grits. My mom got the fried chicken, the pimento cheese fritters, which I believe put that restaurant on the national map. I will show you if you haven't already seen in the stories. Now I had already broken it. I already cut it in half and like done the like initial like gooey cheese kind of shot. So I had to kind of put it back a little bit so I could get a better video of it. But here you go. You ready for this? Hold on. Oops. All right. Look at that cheese. It was so good. It was so good. And here's the my shrimp and grits. There's the fried chicken. It was so good. So if you're in Charleston, if you find yourself in Charleston, check out Puggin's Porch. It's great. Check out all the museums. They're amazing. If you're ever in Savannah, I don't even know where to start with Savannah. Everything in Savannah is just incredible. That makes you a good person, David. Anybody who likes dogs, if you don't like dogs, that is a red flag. I'm just like, who hurt you? So the photographs I was showing in Inverted Phoenix, those were actually taken in Charleston. Charleston actually had prettier side gardens than Savannah. Savannah had wonderful side gardens, but they were more wild. Charleston was very, fancy and sophisticated. But I feel like Charleston is almost like Savannah's more like older, sophisticated sister. Savannah is kind of the younger, like artsy wild child, with all kinds of like weird, interesting history. I'm sure Charleston has a bunch of history, but it's I don't know. Savannah just has like I said before, this like mix of all these interesting like historical things. And it's not just like in the early 1700s 1800s. It spans the entire history of the city. That is why I love Savannah more than Charleston at this time. This is the first time I've ever been to Charleston. I was only there for 2 days, but it was a lot of fun. So anyway, well, I've been going at this for about an hour and a half. I'm sure you guys are tired of listening to me talk about my trip. I will say that I just when I got home, I did nothing yesterday because I got home late Friday. But today I was able to do some photo shoots, and I haven't done any TikToks yet, but I did do some photo shoots. So I will edit those tonight. I'll post them next week so you guys can see. I apologize for taking some time off last week. I did get some good ideas, and I think I might actually start doing a podcast because I'm super into like spooky stuff, and now certainly true crime stuff, and I'd love to do a podcast about it. I just need to figure out how. But yeah, I think that's it. Oh, thank you so much, Asura. Yes. I did this again for a photo shoot, and I tried on my newly dyed 1970s wedding dress, which will be turned into eventually a Regency style gown. But that's what I did the photo shoot in, and I thought it turned out pretty cool. So look out for that on Instagram at some point, but certainly on Patreon earlier. Yeah, so I think that about does it. Thank you guys so much for showing up. As always, again, I apologize for being absent that last week. I'll try and catch up. I will be around next week, which is 4th of July weekend. Sorry, David. We are in fact traitors, but that's okay. I'll do a live then and try and think of something to talk about. That's not this. I don't know. Just always, these lives are always unplanned. I never have a plan for these lives. Some lives I do, but most lives are just me sitting here talking at you. But if you guys ever have any ideas or anything that you ever want to see, again, always let me know. I'm always looking for new stuff, and I want to make my goals to make you guys happy. So tell me what you want to see, and I'll make it happen. If it's within my means. But otherwise, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and a wonderful week. And I hope you have a wonderful holiday weekend. But I'm going to tell you that again next weekend. And look out for the new stuff. I'm going to try and post some new merchandise as well. In the meantime, but yeah, I love you. Look out for lots of photographs of my trip. You can check them out, and I'll see you next week.